Welcome to You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker, a podcast to encourage and equip moms along their parenting journey. Join Sarah each week as she interviews dads and moms like you and discusses the joys, challenges, and rewards of raising kids.
Hi, and welcome to You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker. I'm glad you joined me. Today, I'm talking with Susan Morley, who makes being a mom easier. Doesn't that sound great, moms? Makes being a mom easier. I love that. You can find her at susanmorley.com. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Today, I wanted to talk about independence. With Halloween tomorrow and kids kind of wanting to be on their own, walking around the neighborhoods, it's something I think that kind of comes up a lot, and it can cause a lot of angst in parents because when our kids are toddlers, we think it's cute and they start establishing themselves apart from us. But sometimes that changes as they grow. We get more afraid of letting them out of our sight, of letting them do those independent things. Why do you think it's so hard for us moms? And I'm talking to us moms here because let's be honest, dads generally don't have this problem.
Right.
I mean, why is it hard for us to let our kids out of our physical sight without another adult supervising us or a coach or whoever?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's as with a lot of questions, especially when it comes to parenthood and specifically motherhood, I think there's several answers. So I think the first thing I think about when I hear this from moms, well, I don't know, I'm not sure if they're ready. The first thing is, the children, when they are curious and they are interested in things and they're ready to go off and try things on their own, that is a huge indication that that child is ready for it. Now, that doesn't mean we're like, see ya, and we go the other way and we don't provide any supervision. But I think we need to trust our children's natural, innate ability to take risks. Now, we want to minimize risks, at some level so that they're not just jumping off of the roof of the house with an umbrella thinking that they're going to float down calmly, right? But we also want to encourage them to trust themselves and to trust their abilities. But here's the thing where I think it's specific to moms. I think really the anxiety that moms feel has less to do if their child is ready and more to do if the mom is ready to let go. If our children are ready to walk to the bus stop by themselves, now if we're at home, whether we are a stay-at-home mom or we go to work later, it's quiet, right? All of a sudden it's really quiet in the house and we're left with this space. And I sometimes think that space, when it's empty, it's uncomfortable. And so instead of taking that opportunity now I know I'm being a little lofty here, but instead of taking the opportunity to maybe meditate or read a book or do some yoga stretches before, work or something, we fill that emptiness with worry.
Yeah. I think that is an excellent point, Susan. And often when I talk to moms about fostering independence in their kids, the most common responses circle around that worry taking to an extreme. The worry that it's not just if I let my kid ride his bike around the cul-de-sac without me, it's not just a concern that, he may go too fast down the big hill and end up with skinned knees. It's he's not going to remember that he has to go slow down the hill, and so he's going to, break his leg and never walk again kind of thing. They kind of take that apocalyptic thinking. How can we replace that self-talk? Because that's what's in our mind, right? It's that recording in our mind. They're not going to say that out loud, but it's that record that goes around and around in our mind. Any advice on how we can replace that with a more positive way of thinking?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, facts. And the United States government has a lot of data. And I highly recommend to my clients that they actually get informed. And I'm not saying, now, Sarah, you and I both have Facebook business pages, and we both have personal pages on Facebook, and we enjoy that. But that's not necessarily the best source of quality information, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think we need to be really careful about where, or actually just use our power of discernment when it comes to information. So, for example, you can go to the government's website and find out what are the true statistics on child abduction today compared to when we were children. Now, here's something that most of your listeners, if they're on Facebook at all, will find, oh yeah, I've seen that. It's some kind of image, it's a meme, and there's some image, and it has words over some 1970s toy. And it says, oh boy, I survived, and I never had a helmet. I never even had a car seat. There was no such thing as sunscreen, and I'm still living. So there's this backlash against this bubble wrap parenting. Yet, the judgment that you get if you go somewhere and your child actually does have a sunburn, it's brutal, right? So here's the other piece of it culturally is when a child is misbehaving or a child gets a sunburn or a child breaks the arm, what's the first question? Where is that child's mother? Never does anybody wonder where daddy is. And so we take that on as moms, and I encourage my clients, hey, let's get educated on the facts. Is your child really going to get abducted? Probably not. It's more dangerous to drive on our highways. That's riskier than letting your child play with their doll on the front porch in a fenced-in front yard. Furthermore, child abductions, it's probably somebody that knows you. So you already know the person that's going to take your child if someone's going to take your child. It's very rarely going to be some random stranger. And thirdly, it really is impossible to go through life trying to prevent something from happening. We don't have that much control. We just don't. So for my clients who are people of faith, I can talk to them about this a little bit easier. In my experience, the people of faith tend to be more nervous initially, but then when we talk about it, and let's just let go a little bit, let's look at your faith, and you can talk to a pastor or something like that to really help you get calm and reduce your anxiety. For the more secular clients, all I have to do is say, let's look at the facts. Let's really look at what's happening instead of reading a Facebook post that somebody says, well, my sister's cousin's niece, she has a friend who said that, and whatever horrible thing happened over on the West Coast.
Right, and that's so true. But unfortunately, those kind of stories just circulate all the time. And
they're powerful. They prey on mothers.
They do. And the other thing is, it seems like every week we are hearing, almost every day, sometimes it feels that way, hearing about another mom who had the police called on her because she let her kids do something by themselves. There was that story of I live in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., and there was a story of this family in Maryland who let their kids walk home from a park. And then there was
Baltimore family,
Yeah, it was terrible. And then there was this other mom who let her daughter walk the dog around the block and was called. And those stories kind of, they all really resonate with us. And so we're more apt to go, wait a minute, I'm not going to let this independence. And frankly, when my kids are a little older now, but when my girls were, they were like 10 and 11, I let them walk to the library by themselves. We had walked that many times. It's less than a mile from our house. Mm-hmm. And I was more concerned about what other parents were going to do. I let them do it because it was important and they really wanted to go. And this was this fostering that independence in them. And they were so pleased with themselves that they could do that I thought them old enough and capable enough and responsible enough to do this by themselves. And yet, I was more concerned that I was going to get a call from a police officer about my delinquent children or something. It didn't happen.
Right.
They've done it. But how can we as a community, because it's a community effort at this point, how can we encourage and celebrate that independence?
So the first thing is, I would say, because 99% of my clients are moms. And so what I tell moms all the time is, you have got to make a stand. And so when we have an opinion about something like it has to do with motherhood, we can't just whisper it to our parent coach and then, in front of everyone else act like, well, yeah, of course I would never let my child do that. That's you can't live in that duplicity. You take a stand. It's okay to say when Mrs. Jones up the street says, well, I would never let my child do that. And then just look at her and say, oh, what a pity. And, keep on doing you. We've got to trust, we've got to trust our guts. If really, truly, we are thinking, you know what, there is something wrong. No. I don't like this. Something's not, my radar's going off. I don't like the situation. I want you to trust that. You're not being a bubble wrap parent when you're listening to your intuition. But when you take that and you generalize it over every single thing, your children are not going to be well equipped to handle life, because guess what? They are going to fall down, and you want them to be resilient and know that they can handle life's challenges. And there are plenty of challenges in our life, and there's going to be more coming up. We want them to be able to handle it. But as a community, the first thing is speak your truth. When they tell children how to combat bullying, they say the first thing you do is you stand up. You don't just sit there and watch it. And so I think we as mothers in this modern digital parenting, we need to stand up. We need to be that strong woman in the PTA meeting when they're talking about some ridiculous situation, to stand up and say, excuse me, this is ridiculous. We need to let our children play. They need fresh air, et cetera, et cetera. And if I have an infant and a toddler and a 5-year-old, and I go to my little local dry cleaners, there are 3 parking spaces in front of this dry cleaner. 3. And you walk in, it's all windows in the front. It's a tiny little building. I am leaving my children, and I am not taking those children out of the car. I'm not going to let them die of heat exhaustion. I'll leave the car running, or I'll have the doors open if it's a warm day. But my goodness, that women are put into jail or their children are taken away from them because they are running an errand to the dry cleaner? Where's the evidence? So we need to stand up. And if you see that, and I will tell your listeners, here's my challenge to you. If you see that, instead of judging the mom and calling the police, why don't you just, if you're nervous about it, hang out by the car. Wave to the child in the car, play peekaboo. And when the mom comes back out, because you know it's going to be a mom, just say, hey, just want to let you know I was playing with your kid. How adorable your child is. Just waving through the window. I hope you have a nice day. And then that mom says, wow, what a nice community I live in, neighbors helping each other. Because that's really what we need to go to. Now we're like living in fear, and like it's the zombie apocalypse or something. It's ridiculous.
I know. It's so true. And if we just, make that effort to say that kind word as opposed to that harsh look, it can make all the difference. Right. And when I'm out and about and I see a mom who's struggling, like when my girls and I took a train trip to New York, and there was a mom there with 3 kids, and they were actually being as good as any kid can be on a 3.5-hour train trip. And and the youngest was probably, preschool 4 or 5, and the oldest was, upper elementary. Anyways, she was doing a fine. So we were leaving, and I walked by her, and I just looked at her, and I just said, I want you to know that you did a great job with your kids on the train trip. And the look she gave me, Susan, it was like I had told her she won the lottery. Because I know she was expecting, and this is so unfortunate, I know she was expecting me to say, I can't believe you couldn't control your kids, or some negative thought about it.
Right. Oh, that some parents, and millennial parents are very creative, and they're coming up with these really creative ways to combat the judgment they assume are coming their way, and this breaks my heart. So now it's trendy for millennial parents, when they have an infant and they're coming on an airplane, to pass out candy and an apology note. This is ridiculous. They're passing out candy and apology note to all the passengers in case the baby cries. What kind of world are we living in that babies are inconveniencing us, or that a mother, now granted, I understand. I mean, I breastfed my babies and I did cover up. But why are we making women feed babies in bathrooms?
Yeah, I know.
Why can't she just, I understand we have some modesty. I've got issues about some men running around without the shirts on, too. I mean,
me too, girlfriend.
We got to cover up, they can cover up,
Put
too,
on the shirt.
all right? Yeah. Not everybody looks like a 25-year-old Brad Pitt. So,
yes.
So come on, we can all cover up. I understand about modesty. I'm all about it. But that you're going to actually, and women are reporting this, that they're getting approached and saying, you really shouldn't do that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
It is. And I think the sense of community is something that we can all foster. And, with Halloween tomorrow, one of the things that we've loved about it as a holiday is not just all the free candy my kids get, which is always way too much, but just the opportunity to get out and meet our neighbors and talk to our neighbors. I mean, when else are strange people that you hardly see because they work all the time, when else are they opening their door to you? But what's also kind of funny to me is that we've always seen it as kind of a way to foster our kids' independence. But all too often, the parents are they're really participating too much. I mean, they're like going up to the door with elementary school age kids instead of waiting on the sidewalk. I mean, my parents would walk around with us, but they would wait on the sidewalk, and they're like, you go up and talk to them. And the kids who don't seem to have manners or know what to say or do. So do you have anything, our last little bit of this podcast on trick-or-treating and that community building that we want to do?
Okay, so I just want to say, I feel like I've been like, wah, 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 parents today, and I am sorry, because that is not how I feel. I just really want to encourage parents to stand up, especially moms, and be helpful and join with each other. And so here's my challenge for your listeners. This Halloween, I want you to put on the costume of a very confident mom. And I want you, because my mom, she never went, I mean, we just walked. That was when the whole razor blade and apple scare was happening.
Oh,
by the way, it's a false story. It's an urban myth. It was never true. So we would just went on, but I had an older sister who was 5 years older. So we went as a group, we had our rules, and we did it together. So here's my challenge. I want you moms to put on your calm parent costume. And I want you to tell your kids, hey, you're going to, and then you tell them to do something a little riskier than you normally would be generally comfortable with, slightly, nothing major, but I want you to practice letting your children have that independence. Very briefly, you can say, okay, what do you guys think the rules should be about Halloween? They'll tell you. They've been learning about rules since they've been in preschool. They know. They'll tell you what the boundaries should be. There's actually, Sarah, I have a Halloween contract, and I'm happy to share that with your listeners somehow.
That would be great.
We'll include a link, and I will share that with your listeners, a Halloween contract, so that you can communicate with your child about what your expectations are, and then you can feel comfortable and let them go. And you know what? Don't make them bring a phone. Make them come back to your house for check-ins. Because if you lose a phone on Halloween night, you're not getting it back. So
no, you'll probably get some prank calls. Yeah, prank calls, anyone?
Walkie-talkies, but just have them check in. Okay, there's my 2 cents for Halloween. Happy Halloween!
Yeah,
and brush their teeth. Brush.
I love those tips. And yes, and listeners, you can look on this on the page on my website with Susan's Halloween contract. Well, you have been listening to me, Sarah Hammaker, with You've Got This, and my fabulous guest, Susan Morley, who makes being a mom easier. You can check her out at susanmorley.com, and I hope you'll join me next week. Happy Halloween!
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast of You've Got This with Sarah Hammaker. Sign up to receive notification of new podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhammaker.com. Until next time, remember, parenting might be hard sometimes, but don't worry, you've got this.